How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Infinite Sports. I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, to give you my Week 14 NFL picks. We have not that much time left. We only got a month left in the regular season, so it's winding down. A lot of playoff spots up for grabs. So before we get into that, I do want to recap, give you my thoughts on the game from last night between the Cowboys and the Lions. Lions coming off of that lost to the Packers on Thanksgiving. The Cowboys have been riding this high. They've won back-to-back games against the two teams that played in the Super Bowl last year. And I thought going into this game, Dallas definitely had a really good shot to win this game. And I didn't really like how Detroit's defense played on Thanksgiving. And, Dallas's defense, since the trade deadline has looked like a better unit. And Dak Prescott's been playing good football. They're running the football well. George Pickens has looked great. Didn't look great last night. CeeDee Lamb has been amazing. And then he got banged up last night, left the game with a concussion. So momentum was in Dallas's favor. Now, I did pick Detroit to win. I thought it was going to be a closer game. But Cowboys defense kind of reverted back to the defense that they were pretty much this whole season. I mean, they could not stop Jahmyr Gibbs. The Lions' offense had their way with the Cowboys' defense. And also, they benefited from turnovers. They got 14 points off of turnovers by the Cowboys. That was a huge difference in this game. They couldn't stop Jahmyr Gibbs. He had 3 more touchdowns last night. Was unstoppable both in the running game and in the passing game. Even David Montgomery had a long touchdown run early on in the first half. And, the Cowboys offense, they struggled to kind of get it going early on. Dak did get into a rhythm, made some plays, but ultimately it just wasn't enough. And there was definitely some criticism geared towards George Pickens and his level of effort last night. Looking back on it, you do kind of notice some things. I'm not going to sit here and question his effort, but you go back and you watch the game against the Eagles. I mean, that catch he made over 2 guys, and some of the plays last night that could have been made, you do kind of think about it, but I'm not going to be the one to judge. I think the Cowboys, to me, they got outplayed. Now, there were some interesting calls last night, too. I thought early on, the Lions had a safety against the Cowboys. I thought Dak Prescott clearly got sacked in the end zone, and that should have been a safety, and then they reviewed it and said it wasn't a safety. So I was a little confused by that. Some questionable calls late in the game. Jake Ferguson got charged with an offensive pass interference when it looked like it should have been defensive pass interference. That would have set up a touchdown potentially for the Cowboys. I mean, that still wouldn't have been enough to, change the outcome of the game, but that was another play that I could think of. I'm trying to remember if there are any other questionable calls, but yeah, some questionable calls by the officiating last night. But in the end, look, the Lions, both teams really needed this game. I mean, whoever lost this game, they basically have no chance of making the playoffs, and that team happens to be the Cowboys. I even said I think if they were to have run the table and won last night and won out, I still don't think that'd be enough because there are other teams ahead of them that they would have to pass along with the Lions. So now with that loss, they're definitely not making the playoffs. I mean, they're still, of course, in it. They can win out. They could definitely run the table because they do play against some inferior teams down the stretch. They also do play the Chargers, who are banged up, including their quarterback, Justin Herbert, who had to get surgery on his left hand. So they could win that game, but the odds are stacked against the Cowboys. So I think they're going to come up a little bit short, and especially after last night, that kind of sealed their fate. So, but for the Lions, that was an important win for them. And also, I didn't bring this up, but Amon-Ra St. Brown, who got hurt on the first drive of the game against the Packers last week, he ends up playing in this game last night. He didn't practice all week, but he was warming up before the game, and he was ready to go, and he made an impact on this game as well. Had a couple of big plays down the stretch. Tesla, their rookie receiver, had a touchdown in this game as well. Lions did good last night. Offensively, they were good. The defense, though, still an issue, and now they're going to be without Brian Branch, who unfortunately tore his Achilles in the game last night. So he is out for the year. So that's a big loss on defense. And for a unit that really has not been great as of late. Although they did get to Prescott, they did sack him, put him under pressure, which is something he really hasn't dealt with recently. He was missing some guys on the offensive line last night. But listen, the Lions, they did what they were supposed to do. They got the win. And we'll see what happens down the stretch here. They take on the Vikings again. They still got to play the Bears one more time. So, and they got the Rams next week, so that's going to be a tough game. So, it's going to be a tough path for them to get into the playoffs themselves. But at least with the win last night, they're still hanging around. But they got to hope that the 49ers kind of slip up and they can get some wins down the stretch. The Rams game is going to be very tough, though. That is going to be a tough game. So we'll see what happens. And it's always fun when these two teams match up against each other these last couple of seasons. We've seen some good games between these two teams, and the Lions have gotten the best of the Rams. But I think it's going to be a little different this time around. And now this game's going to be out in L.A. So not that home field advantage really means a lot, but it change of scenery. But yeah, the Lions, they get the win last night, 44-30 over the Cowboys. I did pick the Cowboys to cover. That did not happen. They were covering for a brief moment. I think it was after the Flanor touchdown. Then they went for two and got it. Jake Ferguson caught the 2-point conversion. So I thought, okay, just keep the score the way it is. But it really did not last. Did not last at all. Also, shout out to Brandon Aubrey. That guy's unbelievable. I mean, again, last night he kicks a 63-yard field goal. I mean, he's the best in the business. So I forgot to mention that. But it was a pretty high-scoring football game last night. If you bet the over, hopefully you won big. So those are my thoughts on the Thursday night game. So now let's get into the rest of the slate. There are a lot of big matchups this weekend. In the AFC North, you got the Steelers and the Ravens, two teams that are struggling offensively. You got two banged-up quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers and Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson hasn't thrown a touchdown pass, I believe, in 3 weeks, which is hard to believe. I mean, he should have last week, but likely ended up fumbling in the end zone, and that led to a touchback. And then for the Steelers, yeah, their fans are up in arms right now because of their performance at home last week against the Bills. Listen, it's a tough game to decide. The number's pretty big. The Steelers are getting 6 points right now. And I feel like for the Ravens, their plan should be just give the ball to Derrick Henry. Give the ball to Derrick Henry. Because Derrick Henry last year torched the Steelers. And the Steelers, they can't stop the run this year either. I mean, we saw what the Bills did to them last week. I think that should be the game plan for the Ravens, is to run the ball. Because your quarterback is injured right now, and he can't really run the football himself. There are times he scrambles with it, but it's not like what it was earlier in the season. He's playing hurt right now. So I think you run the ball with Derrick Henry, and you rely on your defense. Because I just think the way the Steelers' offense is right now, it doesn't seem like they're going to be able to generate any kind of passing attack and run the football. It's just their offense is stagnant right now. And they did go out and make a move. They signed Adam Thielen. They claimed him off waivers from the Vikings. But that's another player that's over the age of 30. He's 35. And I like Thielen. Thielen was a good player in his day, but, and not to say with Carolina he wasn't, he didn't produce. He had a nice rapport with Bryce Young, but it's just, I don't think it's going to work. It's just, I think the Steelers' offense is going to struggle here. I think this could be a very ugly game, where it comes down to maybe the defenses and the kickers and special teams. I think that could be this kind of game. I kind of lean towards the Ravens in this game to get the win. I think the Steelers could cover because, they hit rock bottom last week. But it's just hard for me to take them with the points because their offense really has not been able to move the ball. I mean, they did against the Bears, but you had Mason Rudolph playing quarterback. And I'm not trying. And listen, I'm not trying to say that they should bench Aaron Rodgers for Mason Rudolph. The reason why Mason Rudolph was in is because Aaron Rodgers got hurt. I think even though Aaron Rodgers has not played good football for a while now, and he's hurt, I still think he gives them the best chance to win outside of Mason Rudolph. And, I know some fans are calling for Will Howard. Look, if the Steelers are trying to compete for a playoff spot, I think Aaron Rodgers is the way to go. Now, you could also say, well, look at what Mason Rudolph did down the stretch a couple of years ago. It's a fair point. But that was also a couple of years ago. And you could also say, well, Aaron Rodgers hasn't made the playoffs in quite some time. So there's a lot of back and forth with that. But I think you go with Rodgers from here on out. They got to figure something out. Have to. So I am leaning towards the Ravens. I think I might lean towards taking the points because it is a big number. I don't feel good about it, though. So then we get the Seahawks and the Falcons. Seahawks 9-3, Falcons 4-8. Falcons coming off of a loss against the Jets. Seahawks coming off of a win, despite Sam Darnold not playing that well. I mean, they won 26-0 against the Vikings. I do like the Seahawks in this spot. The Falcons will be without Drake London again. I just think this defense, it's one of the best defenses in the league, Seattle's. And they gave Kirk Cousins a hard time last year as well. And I think it's going to be more of the same here. So I do like the Seahawks to win and cover. Then I got the Browns. We got the Browns and the Titans. That could be an ugly game. Deshaun Watson is actually practicing. So that's something to keep an eye on in case maybe we see some game action down the stretch if he's activated. The Titans are just, both teams aren't very good, but Browns got the much better defense, and I think that's the difference in the game here. They get after Cam Ward. Maybe they force some turnovers. Myles Garrett continues to be the sack machine that he's been this year. And I think the Browns win an ugly game, and they win and cover. Right now they're favored by 4. Right now there's snow in the forecast. Trust the running game. Trust the defense. I'd take the Browns. Big game out in Jacksonville. You got the 8-4 Colts against the 8-4 Jaguars. Colts are reeling right now, and the schedule is not going to get any easier. They play the Jags twice. They play the Texans again. They got the Seahawks and the Niners. I feel like they will win at least another game, maybe 2, but they could also lose out. And you got a quarterback that's injured right now. The Jags, they're a frustrating team because, yes, they're 8-4, but Trevor Lawrence still is turning the ball over. That's still an issue. The defense, I think, has been a surprise because the defense was not good last year. The running game has been good. Look, this Jags team's 8-4, and they control their own destiny. They beat the Colts here. If they win out, they're going to win the division. They're at home in this spot. I think this is going to be a close game. It could come down to a last-second field goal. But I'm kind of leaning towards the Jags here at home. They're actually the underdogs in this game. But I'm kind of leaning towards the Jags. Healthier quarterback. That's just how I feel right now. But I think it's going to be a close game. I think this is going to be a good game. This is going to be a good game. But I'm going to take the Jags in a close one here. Then you got the Vikings and the Commanders. Commanders were this close to upsetting the Broncos on Sunday night. Fell a little bit short of that. And the Vikings, Max Brosmer, that was a tough spot to be put in. That was kind of like when the Broncos had to start Kendall Hinton in the COVID season against the Saints. They had no chance. And the Vikings had no chance sending out Max Brosmer against the Seattle Seahawks defense in front of that crowd. and the Vikings ended up getting shut out. So now, got these two teams. Jane Daniels is not playing. Actually, no. Is he playing this week, or did they rule him out? Because I know he was practicing. If not, then it's gonna be Mariota again, who hasn't been that bad, taking over for Jaden Daniels. But oh yeah, no, it looks like he is. Yeah, he is gonna start. He is gonna start against the Vikings. So, you know what? I think I'm still gonna take the Vikings. I think the Vikings are due for a win. I mean, well, then again, you could also say the Commanders are due for a win as well because they've lost, what is it now, 7 straight? Yeah, they've lost 7 straight. The Vikings, they've lost 4 straight. One of these teams has to win. I'm going to take the Vikings, though. I'm going to take the Vikings and their defense. I think J.J. McCarthy, this is the type of defense that you should be able to move the ball against and get your receivers going, get this offense going. I don't feel great about it, but I'm going to put my faith in Kevin O'Connell and this team to put a game plan together for J.J. McCarthy so we can go out there and do just enough to beat the Commanders, but also feed Justin Jefferson because I need it for fantasy in a big way this week. So I'm going to go with the Vikings to win a close one, but it would not shock me if the Commanders win. And we'll see how Jane Daniels look, because after that injury that he suffered against the Seahawks, you thought he was going to be out for the rest of the year. So he's back. So we'll see how he looks in this contest. Then you got the Jets, 3-point underdogs against the Dolphins. Listen, give the Jets credit. They have been playing better. Tyrod Taylor taking over as the starter was the right move. The offense actually is actually moving the football. And you're seeing A.D. Mitchell making an impact. You're seeing John Mechie making an impact. And Breece Hall. I would like to see Garrett Wilson back and see how he is with these other 2 receivers that they got now. How that all would look together. But I don't know if that's going to happen. And the Dolphins, look, they've been winning games. They have now won 3 in a row. And, you know, it's not going to be easy. Well, after this week, then you got the Steelers in Pittsburgh. You got the Bengals, the Bucs, and the Patriots. So those are not going to be easy games on the schedule after the Jets. But the Jets are not going to be easy either. You know, they've been playing better. So Dolphins, they could lose this game. I think I am going to take the Jets to cover. But I think I might ride with the Dolphins. Say they get the win here. So Jets to cover, Dolphins to win. Bucs 8.5-point favorites against the Saints. That is a big number. And I thought the Bucs were going to get Mike Evans and Jalen McMillan back because they returned to practice this week, but they're still a little bit further down the line. Look, the Saints are a 2-10 football team. Baker's banged up, but did get Bucky Irving back, so that was good to see. Had a touchdown. I think I'm going to take the Bucs to win and cover in this game. Weather doesn't look nice right now. I see rain in the forecast, but I think I'm going to lean towards the Bucs in this spot. Then you got the Bengals and the Bills. Now, if you remember, and there's snow in the forecast here, so we'll see if that happens. But Joe Burrow and the Bengals, they went into Buffalo and they knocked off the Bills in the playoffs and played against the Chiefs in the championship game for the second year in a row. And that was the year where those two teams played against each other in Cincy, and the DeMar Hamlin incident happened and they postponed the game. And then there was talk of, well, if the Bills and the Chiefs are playing each other, are they going to do a neutral AFC championship game? They play in Atlanta, or they play at a neutral site. And then the Bengals knocked them off. And Burrow, after the game, said, you better send those refunds. And Cincinnati's in the same spot they're in last year. They got to win out and get some help in order to make the playoffs. And I definitely think they could win out. And the Bills' defense is not good. Bengals' defense also isn't good. So this game could be very high scoring. It could be like the game we saw last night. I'm going to take the Bengals. I'm going to take the Bengals to cover. The number's big. Now, are the Bengals going to win this game? I'm going to say the Bengals win this game. I'm going to say they win this game. I'm going to say they win a close game here. So I think it's going to be very high scoring. I think T. Higgins is going to be back for this week. You're going to see both offenses moving the ball up and down the field because these defenses can't stop anything. More so the Bengals defense. So Burrow's going to have to be perfect. He was rusty. He got the rust off as the game went along. Take the Bengals to win. And if they win and they beat the Ravens next week, they got a lot of winnable games down the stretch. Much easier games. So it's possible. You just got to get through these next 2 weeks. And just hope Burrow gets out of it healthy. So then we got the Raiders and the Broncos. Raiders are just a complete mess. 7.5-point underdogs. The Broncos just don't win easily. They don't make any games look easy. But they make the plays when they have to in crunch time. I'm gonna say the Broncos. They don't win 10-7 this time. They get to Geno. They sack him. The Broncos defense does their thing. Maybe create some turnovers. In Broncos, they find success moving the ball against the Raiders defense, and they get the winning cover. Then we got the Cardinals and the Rams. Rams 8.5-point favorites. I think the Rams get back on track here after the upset loss to the Panthers last week. I think Stafford has a good game. The defense gets after Jacoby Brissett. They win and cover. Rams usually beat up the Cardinals, so I think that's a spot here. Marvin Harrison Jr. is out with a heel injury now. They got injuries at the running back position. So I'm gonna take the Rams to win and cover. And then you got the Packers and the Bears. The 9-3 Bears, the number 1 seed in the NFC against the Packers, are 8-3-1. And there's some bulletin board material going into this game because Ben Johnson said in his press conference, his press conference when he got hired, is he really enjoyed beating Matt LaFleur twice a year. So that's bulletin board material. And the Bears are going to be without Rome Odunze for this game. So I think that's a big loss here. Packers looked good offensively last week, and they had 10 days to prepare for this game. So I kind of going back and forth here. And the Bears, they ran the football tremendously against the Eagles, had 200-yard rushers. But you know what? It is 6.5 points. And the Bears beat the Packers technically this year. Final week of the regular season last year. I'm going to take the Packers to win and cover. I think that defense is going to come ready. Bears defense, it was good last week against the Eagles, although you could also say it was bad Eagles as well. But yeah, I'm going to say the Packers, they get even with the Bears this time around. They knock them off, they win and cover. And Jordan Love has a good game. But it should be a good game. Sunday night, you got the number 1 ranked defense in the Houston Texans taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs are 3.5-point favorites. Chiefs are going to be without 3 of their offensive linemen against the number 1 ranked defense. So that is not good going into this game. It's not. And if you remember last year, the Chiefs got to C.J. Stroud and they sacked him 8 times. So I think I don't know if that's going to happen. This one's tough to pick. And the Chiefs are coming off of a loss. I'm going to say the Chiefs find a way to win this game. They have to win this game. And they find a way to cover. Because C.J. Stroud didn't look great against the Colts on this past Sunday. He turned the ball over. I'm going to take the Chiefs to win and find a way against the number 1 ranked defense. And then we got the Eagles and the Chargers. Banged up Justin Herbert against the Eagles, who were flat on Black Friday. This could be an ugly game. I'm going to take the Eagles, though. Get back on track here. But yeah, it's going to be an ugly game. Omarion Hampton's supposed to come back for the Chargers, so that's good for them. Kamani Vidal has done a nice job filling in for him. But I'm going to take the Eagles to win and cover in that game. So those are my picks for Week 14. I'll make sure to recap these games next week. Hope everybody enjoys the weekend. As always, everybody make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the video, to the channel. Make sure to follow us on the social media platforms in the description below. And wherever you get your podcasts, you can follow us as well, or listen to us as well. Just look up Infinite Sports and you'll find us there. And as always, everybody, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off. Have a good one. Talk to you guys next time. Take care.